We are back, season 4, the Cowboys and Coffee podcast. We have recovered emotionally, spiritually from the Cowboys loss as much as we possibly will. And now we're on to smaller and worser things. So that's been that Cowboys offseason so far. Anything to say as we kick off season 4?
Yeah, I'm going to start out with a third grader said to me a few weeks ago, and he was a third grader in the lunch cafeteria. He said, "Cowboys suck." And I wanted to say, well, you shouldn't say suck, but I kind of let him say it. The Cowboys suck. So I walked away from him. I had nothing to say. There you go.
What else can you say? All right. Cowboys offseason is among us, and this is probably one of the not better ones in a while. I will say that. Cowboys lost their offensive coordinator. Cowboys lost their default offense coordinator. Kellen Moore's gone now. He's with the Eagles. Dan Quinn is gone. He is with the head coach now, the Commanders. And it is something. I mean, Kellen Moore's been gone, but you understand.
Yeah.
It's a different era here in Dallas. They're going in a different direction, and they've lost several free agents, many free agents, and they haven't really added the depth. Talk to me about where at Cowboys as they have moved into the offseason. What are they doing? What are they doing?
Well, every year we're always scratching our head because nobody ever knows what the Cowboys are doing. Let's say this. They had to revamp the offensive line because the guy that we love for many years has been inconsistent in and out of the lineup. So we're moving on from him. Okay. Let's see. He goes to the Jets. He plays 14 games, 12 games. We'll see. See what he plays. That we had to move on from him. We had to move on.
See, last time he played 16 games was 2015.
Okay. Rest my case. So they moved on from him. They're going to have to put Bass left guard and Smith the left tackle, Hoffman center, and you run with it. You just go.
What I've learned from the NFL is you can't pay elite money for either non-elite talent or elite talent that doesn't play. I mean, he's averaged 7.5 games over his last 4 years. He gives you 2 games or he gives you 11 games, 3 games or 13 games. And we love him, future Hall of Famer, great player. Cannot pay him $20 million for 10 games.
He's a part-time player. He's been a part-time player, people. Simple as that. The last number of years.
You have to move on from it.
Have to move on. I thought it was 2 years too much anyways, but okay. So we're going to move on. Revamped our offensive line. They'll go out there and block people, move people around. Bass is underrated. You're going to see how good he is. Hoffman, watched some tape of him. Okay, he's an upgrade. I'm telling you, he's an upgrade over who we lost. And the left tackle, who's played there before, so he's not going there. He's not cold turkey with this stuff. He knows what it is to be a left tackle. And the guy from North Carolina is still there. Hello?
Right. They still have Asim Richards, who we like a lot. Hoffman, they seem to work him in as much as they could. They seem to have faith in his development. I'm not a huge fan. I would really prefer an upgrade in the draft, who we will talk about later. We'll talk about later in this episode. But I think another big key is Terrence Steele kind of proving that he's back from that injury. They gave him a good contract. He gave up 7 sacks last year, 8 sacks. He's going to have to, I think he had 7% sack rate. He's gonna have to come back a little bit, bounce back again a year removed from the ACL injury. I think he can. He showed he's worked hard. He improved.
He's still young.
Right. He was a sieve his first year. He's improved dramatically since then. So we understand they're going to have to address that. I mean, Chuma Adoga never really gave you anything along the offensive line. So losing him, whatever. They're going to roll with Richards. Bass, we like a left guard. We do think he is very strong up front. He's not getting bull rush. I think that's a big thing for Hoffman, is that if they go with if he's the guy over, Biotish is gone, he's not getting bull rushed and blown up in the middle anymore. That's the thing. Too often that happened with Biotish with power rushers, or sometimes Biotish would just whiff. And again, I'm not going to bash Biotish like, oh, he stunk, he stunk. No, he was not Travis Frederick, but he was a Pro Bowler. And it hurts to lose Pro Bowlers. It hurts to lose talent. That's the reality of the situation. But in the modern NFL, that's what happens. You lose talent, and everybody loses talent. Everybody. And you have to replace the talent. So you have to draft well, and you have to address it with the appropriate resources in free agency. The Cowboys free agency, they really have started to, lose guys, but I think it's tempered. Be honest, we lost. We understand you can't pay the elite money for him. Durance Armstrong also followed him to Washington, and Noah Igbenogany went with him to Washington, and so did Dante Fowler. So Durance Armstrong and Dante Fowler are good rotation pieces, but they still have Micah Parsons, Marcus Lawrence, Sam Williams. You've said before they didn't lose starters; they lost second string guys.
Yeah, they lost second string guys. Depth. Are we going to change the Washington team to Dallas JVs? Because I think that's probably better off Dallas JVs. That's all. That's fine. But I look like Mr. Potato Head with a goatee. That's what I look like.
Good for you, and props to
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank you,
that.
Dad. Thank you, Grandpa Cortez. No, you're Grandpa. I'm a Grandpa Cortez, anyways.
Hmm.
All right, go ahead.
But they have. I'm curious where they're at. They only have about 8 million in cap, and a lot of that will be used to sign their draft class. Jonathan Hankins has gone to Seattle. Neville Gallimore has gone to another Cowboys JV team, Miami. Um, Tony Pollard is gone, and we love Tony Pollard too. He was not a great number one back. He didn't have a great year. He had a solid year, 1,000 yards, but I'm just not blown away by him as the number one back, and I'm certainly not paying him big back money. I I could not have the Cowboys paying him 3 years, 24 million. And you say, oh, it's 8 million a year. It's not an appropriate group of resources. I would rather go Rico Dowdle as a second back, and they'll have to address the running back position in the draft or some other way, whether it's Dalvin Cook down the road or whatever. But I'd rather take the cheap route there than spend the big money on, anything 8 million and above, seven for a running back is just, unless you're
Well,
Derrick Henry, or Christian McCaffrey, I'm just not doing it.
yeah, we're not. You more expert than I am on cap and stuff. What you can afford and can't afford. I would have resigned him. I don't know if we could the cap hit or whatever that means. That's the whole idea. But by observation, I would have resigned him for 3 years myself. Because you got yourself in the predicament now. You really don't have a starting running back. You do need one. It's not
Absolutely.
that extinct.
So the reality of the modern NFL is equally that you do need to have offensive weapons because it elevates your team. Look at the 49ers with McCaffrey. He has elevated and allowed their quarterback. I don't think Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback by any stretch. I don't think he's a top five quarterback, but I think he's a very good quarterback who gets to look better because of the talent around him. That's not a shade. Anyone who has great talent around them is going to look better. That's the reality of the situation. And he just happened to walk into a great situation, and good for him. Listen, he was a great player at Iowa State. And that you look at guys in college who go to programs and all of a sudden this program does really well. Oftentimes they translate well in the NFL. Look at Dak Prescott and what he did at Mississippi State. They were successful as they'd been in decades. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying the Cowboys need assets. They need skill players that are skilled besides one or two guys, besides CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson and Brandon Cooks. They need a good running back. I'm worried that this front office feels like they're the smartest guys in the room and they have it figured out when the reality is for the last 30 years, they have no history to give us to say they figured it out, Dave.
Well, as far as player movement, player drafted, free agents, and all that, they did okay. It's a whole. Nobody's come up with the missing link Australopithecus, what happens in the playoffs, which is another show for another time. And I still have nightmares of that game. So it is something that Jerry has to live with because it's all on Jerry. And that's another episode as well. But here we are. Again, everybody's scratching their heads on the Cowboys, what they do. They get right. Some players, some of those second rounders have stunk, and
Right.
some have done very well.
And you have like last year, and you pick Mozzie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker, and we've understood those are two positions that the Cowboys, at least tight end, that we know that they can develop very well because they have over the last how many years. But at the nose tackle is not a position that comes in and immediately provides immediate impacts. We're thinking 2, 3, 4 years down the road that he'll be with the Cowboys long term. And that's why you can let someone like a Jonathan Hankins go because you believe in his development. But it's tough when that's your plan and you're in a more of a win now mode, and there's other guys at those picks who come in and do things for teams around the league, and you're left with guys who are long-term projects, when you could have had perhaps a running back in that first or second round who would add a much more immediate impact. A linebacker, now you have Overshown coming back. Don't get me wrong. The defense will be helped just by health with Diggs and Overshown. I just wonder what's the plan. And I'm just a little worried about the plan going forward. Again, because I don't feel like they've given us the history to say, yeah, we figured it out. Because you remember the draft, they got Jason Williams years ago, and they thought they were just special teamers away. And
Oh,
it was just one of the worst drafts in NFL history.
oh,
And again, sometimes it just feels like they think they're the smartest guys in the room and they'll just figure it out. And, Jerry says, I'm going all in. What's the qualifier? Is it that Dak has to redo his contract? Because if that's the qualifier, that's not happening. That's not happening.
well, what's all in has made news. Okay.
And that's
So
Jerry.
now I've come to a different perspective on the Dallas Cowboys. You got to look through Jerry's eyes. And he knew that was going to make news. Now, again, all in would be resigning Pollard, resigning these guys who are not going to leave, and that would be all in. I would think that'd be all in, but I think it was a PR statement, Paulie's son.
Yeah, that's a
I think it
great
was a
point.
PR statement. Everybody's going because everybody's going to run with it. The
Well,
success of the Cowboys right now is not winning Super Bowls anymore. It's the PR department.
yeah,
That's the reality of it. So
it's the
that's
value
reality.
of the franchise. It's not the winning of the franchise. So that leads me to the next big thing, which is Dak Prescott. He's playing this last year, and his deal was about 60 million. And we're looking at a long-term contract, what that looks like for Dak, and the value of that. And is that worth it for the Dallas Cowboys? Someone posted online says if Dak was offered 3 years, 200 million fully guaranteed, would he take it? And some people from the Cowboys have said no, he wouldn't. And that's 66 million a year. And yes, you can move the money around with void years and everything, kick the can on cap room. But Dak at 60 million, and I'm a big proponent of listen, you pay the guys whatever the market dictates. That's kind of how it goes. But Dak's not worth $66 million a year. And if he's going for more than that, let's say 3 years, 210 million, 70 million, he's not worth it. We love Dak. We love Dak personally. We are defenders of him as his play. He's not worth that against your cap. The only guy who is worth that is Patrick Mahomes. And even he maneuvers his cap space around to help his team. And I'm just worried. I'm not worried. I think we're coming to the divorce of Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, if he leaves Dallas, where's he going to go to get that money? So that's why they'll sit down, they'll work it out. Their feelings will be hurt, blah, 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 with Dak, disrespected,
We'll
all
hear from
that.
Tad, his loser brother.
Yeah, I mean, why are they quoting brothers and mothers now? Why is the sports world quoting mothers, and mothers had their say, from high school and underneath. Outside of that, forget it. What does the brother got to say? He don't want him in Dallas.
Tad Prescott's such a loser, and no one
Let's
cares. Let
go,
me tell you something. If Tad hears this, we don't care. Shut
yeah,
up.
yeah. It was just
Uh, I think, in my opinion, the Dallas Cowboys are going to move on. Perhaps they have learned that you cannot pay elite money for non-elite talent. Do I think Dak's a top 10 quarterback? Absolutely. Do I think Dak deserves the money that he is going to get in the next contract? Not from the Dallas Cowboys. And I think you've started to see that with the Trey Lance propaganda that's been put out. He's improving, he's doing well, he's learning. Oh, he's the curve, he's getting it. We've started to see those stories trickle out little by little. And oh, teams are going to trade for Trey Lance. First of all, a lot of speculation around the Cowboys in the offseason has been so dumb. Oh, they could go after Derrick Henry, Mike Tannenbaum. Don't ever listen to Mike Tannenbaum when he says anything. People, please, you don't
please.
have a clue. He's just rattling off what he would do, not what any inside information. Oh, the Cowboys go after this person. We all knew the Cowboys would never be big players in free agency. We would love them to be with Saquon. We've said that before here. We would love if they would go after someone like that, but that's not their MO. And then with the cap space that they're at, it's really they're really hamstrung. And then without Dak's extension, they're really hamstrung. So the Cowboys, if they don't pay Dak, he's 60 million against the cap this year, and they'll still be 40 million in dead cap next year. But after that, they're clean. So can you reset the clock? And it's all about the cap and managing your cap and the cap clock, so to speak, on when you have to pay these guys. You gotta pay CD, you gotta pay Micah Parsons. Someone mentioned to me, maybe they move on from Dak, and next year in the draft, they try and get a quarterback who might also maneuver his way to a team that would want him to be there in Shador Sanders as the next quarterback. Thoughts?
No. All right. Dion's hyping his son up. The son is not a pro prospect. Sorry.
You don't think it's a pro prospect?
No. I don't think he's a pro prospect. He'll be drafted, but listen.
Talking about JJ McCarthy going top 5 this year. I know it
Yeah,
depends on the draft, whatever.
McCarthy. No, he's not better than McCarthy. This guy has done well on playing level on the schools he's played against. On the pro level, the next level is a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. Stop following the name. Okay, stop following the hype. Dion is a legend. First corner of your starting team of Hall of Famers right there, but his son does not have that ability to play the next level, especially the quarterback position. Throw him at wide receiver. I got you.
But my favorite thing about Shador is when he was like, people have always doubted me, and I haven't had the respect or a lot of the hype the other guys have had. Like, brother, you literally followed your dad and got the starting quarterback job because your dad's been the head coach, and your dad is one of the greatest
Yeah,
cornerbacks of all time and one of the biggest personalities in NFL history. So,
yeah.
who has doubted you?
Mhm.
Like, who has been like, you know what? This kid doesn't have the family pedigree to play. I
Well,
mean,
go
he's
play somewhere else without dad.
right,
Go play.
right.
That's what he should have said. He should have, Dad, I love you. I love that name. I love what you've done for me. You provided for me. I'm going to college. I'm going to Idaho and playing. I'm going to go to Idaho and put that team on my back, and we're going to make a bowl. Boom. There you go.
Listen, I, I don't doubt you.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you where you're at. So what do the Cowboys? What's your prediction? What the Cowboys do with Dak Prescott?
They'll sit down and iron it out. They'll sit down and iron it out. Dak's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
I'm
They're
you're
gonna they're gonna keep him there because he's still forget one thing, he's still the best quarterback in the East, and the Cowboys can't back away from that, and they'll sit down and work it out, and he'll get some money. He's not gonna be hurting for money. He's gonna get an increase of money, not what he wants, and they'll have to work around the cap. He's not going anywhere. He's still the best quarterback in the East. Who Hurts? You think Hurts is good? Hurts is taking a step back. Okay, he's going backwards. It's going to
Yeah,
go
he showed
backwards.
us late last year that
Jones with the Giants. Forget him. And who the Commodores picking? They're going to pick a rookie to come in there, and
they're absolutely taking a quarterback. They have no
yeah, they're going
doubt.
to pick a
But
quarterback.
you can't say that rookie is better than Dak, even if
Right?
as good as someone
No.
like the Texans drafted a rookie quarterback last year. You can't say, oh, you know what? They're the they're the best. He's the best quarterback. He's better.
Remember, remember with the quarterback's second year, they all figure that they all go on the tape and figure out what he likes, even with the system. You'll see because he
Right.
had such a great year. And don't get me wrong, I think he is good. Don't get me wrong, because we were saying from Ohio State, boy, he does look good. Did they all make him look good? It
Right.
turned out that they run the same 49ers system too. So that helps your quarterback who knows the system. You know that system.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, CJ
Did he
Stroud.
play well? Did he play well in the second uh playoff game?
I mean, he was
No.
okay, but it wasn't nothing to
Yeah.
write home about. I mean,
Okay.
but still, he did excellent as a rookie, and that's what you
Yes, he
go
did.
for if you're going to draft a guy. And I want to say the Cowboys are going to re-sign Dak. I don't think it gets done. They don't have an offer on the table. I don't. I think they move on from Dak. I think if they move on from Dak, what they need to do really is to trade him. I think there's no reason why you wouldn't trade Dak Prescott now. If you're going to move on from him, then move on from him and get something. What are you going to get if he moves on next year? You got to wait a whole next year to get a third round comp pick. Oh, great, fantastic! You might as well move on now and get what you're going to get. Speaking of getting what you're going to get and draft picks, I want to start. We're going to delve more into the draft as it comes up over the next month or two. Well, really the next month. It's in a few weeks, the NFL draft. You're the Cowboys at 24. Give me a player you would love to grab and a player who maybe will be a realistic option. So I'll tell you, I'll start. The player I would love to grab is Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon. I think he is an all-pro in the making. I think he comes in and starts day one for Hoffman, and in place of Biotis, but over Hoffman. That's the guy who I think, man, I would take him in a heartbeat. A guy, I don't want to steal your thunder with a guy who you're going to say. I would say a guy who I could see them picking is Amarius Mims, the tackle from Georgia. He's 6'8", 340. I think they addressed the offensive line in the first pick as much as is reasonably possible. Give me a couple of guys for you here with the Cowboys in round one.
Well, because I think Zimmer is such a great defensive coordinator across the board from linemen, linebackers, and the back end. I want the guy Murphy from Texas.
Right,
Uh,
Byron Murphy. He's
yeah,
6 foot. I mean, he's legit.
yeah, he's a weak man. He's a weak man's Warren Sapp.
I mean, he ran a 4.87. That's
Yeah,
moving for a D tackle. 28
yeah,
reps, 33-inch vertical for a big guy.
yeah,
That's moving. He can move.
yeah. And plus, he plays football. Well, what you the other Smith? He tested out well too. You want the two beefy tackles in there to collapse the pocket, and that's what'll make that. And you won't be able to run outside because they're going to have the linebackers come healthy there. So but you want that big stud tackle to make everybody on the outside look better himself. That's or because the Cowboys have this habit to drafting somebody like what? I'm going with the Florida State running back.
You think they might take? It's possible they take him in the first round.
Because they do things you never. Oh, he's a second. What's their history on the Cowboys? Oh,
Yeah.
he's not a first round pick. What happens?
Oh, that's right. Trey Benson, who I love as a potential
Oh man,
star. People have him mocked in the third round. I'll be shocked if he gets out of the second round. I
no,
really
he's.
will be.
Let me tell you something. He reminds you of Emmett Smith. He's shifty, hits the hole, and gone. He can catch out of the backfield. I'm telling you, he's a Emmett Smith with some gears, Jack. He got some gears. and that'll make that offense. What happens? He runs between the tackles. That'll fit that running back scheme because they threw away the zone blocking. They shoved they. That's down the toilet bowl, the zone blocking. So there you go.
So you picked D line or running back, and I appreciate the thought behind it that they kind of do something a little crazy. You know,
Which they do.
could you see them trying to get a wide receiver like Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver who ran the fastest 40 time?
Yeah, I'm not crazy on speed with wide receivers. I think it's overrated.
I agree.
If I'm going to go with somebody, I'll tell you, I'm going to go with who's going to be a star. Is Blair? Is it what's Thomas Jr.? What's his first name for LSU? 6'4". He's the poor man's Randy Moss.
Are you talking about Malik Neighbors?
No, the other one, Thomas. He's 6'4", 205.
Oh, Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, yeah. They've had some crazy recent history of wide receivers, huh? I mean,
And those guys are
those guys are stars.
they come in know how to run routes. That's why they do. They
Odell,
don't drop balls.
Jamar
They run,
Chase, Justin Jefferson. Think about it. You had one college team where your second wide receiver was either Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. It was Justin Jefferson as the number two. Think about it. That's your number two.
and they're legit great. They're
Yeah,
legit
they're
great.
fantastic.
They run routes. They run routes and they catch the ball. They
Let me
run
ask
routes and
you,
catch the ball.
let me ask you about another guy I think the Cowboys could potentially take in this first round, who I think you're a huge fan of, Graham Barton, offensive lineman from Duke.
Oh, okay, I do love him. Yeah, yeah. But I think they're going to stay with. I think they're going to stay with their linemen. What they have.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because you know why? Here's the Cowboy. We always think that they're going to do the obvious thing. They're not going to do the obvious thing. Since speaking to Mister, who do we know, Uncle?
Yeah.
My eyes, I think differently now.
You know, there's so many guys who I like as prospects, but I don't think they really fit with the Cowboys. You know, someone like Tavondre Sweat, the other interior defensive lineman from Texas, he's about 6'5", 366. Man, I would love to have him up front. But with Mazza, you're not spending another high draft pick on another one technique guy or interior nose. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think the similar thing with Xavier Worthy. He can get open, man. He can move. Another guy I like, Lad McConkey from Georgia. He's like 5'11" and a half.
Right. He's a white boy.
Run. He can
plays a
run
slot
routes,
receiver.
man.
Yeah, he's good. Absolutely. I saw tape on him. He's legit good. He's really I'll tell you who Odell Beckham. That's what he's like.
Yeah, I mean he's incredible.
Yeah.
Here's one name that I've during the draft process, I've thought about one person. He just keeps coming up again and again, and I don't know why. It just feels like if the Cowboys are going to go off the board, I feel like it would be for a pass rusher. And this is just a feeling. It's not really based on, it's really not based on anything. Chop Robinson, edge from Penn State, about
Yes, I like him.
254. He had incredible handwork. He has a motor. I think he's the type of guy who, you know, you look at their new defensive coordinator in Zimmer, say, give me another guy there, because they have to address a linebacker issue, and whether that's moving Micah back to linebacker or even occasionally back to linebacker or drafting another one later in the draft. Getting another guy, because you're going to need to fill the depth there anyway, because you lost a couple of your backups. Chop Robinson's a guy I would keep an eye on. I just have a feeling, first of all, it's a Cowboys name. Chop Robinson's a great name for a Cowboy. And I just feel like that's a guy you're like, man, he could really, you know, he could end up with the Cowboys. And I probably wouldn't be too mad that they didn't pick
Well, you think Micah Parsons is not calling for him?
Exactly.
I saw tape on him. I'm gonna tell you something right now. He's gonna be a double-digit guy for a long time of sacks.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised to see him fall, but I think this is a very deep draft. I think it's only benefits teams like the Cowboys that there are probably 4 or 5 quarterbacks, right? You have the top three: Williams, Daniels, and May, who are going to go. JJ McCarthy will most likely go in that first round. You could have Michael Penix Jr. go in the first round, or you're going to have Bo Nix go early second round. I'll be surprised if there aren't 6 quarterbacks taking those first 2 rounds. Add on top of that, I think it's a deep draft. I think at least those first 2 rounds, there is elite talent to be had. Sometimes the Cowboys have drafted late in the first round. You're like, there's just not that level of talent there. So you trade out. I think the level of talent is there. I think the level of talent is there where I could see the Cowboys trade out of the first round. Maybe if someone wants to move back up into that first round to get a player they're looking for to move into the second round and maybe stack because they don't have a fourth or fifth because they traded for Gilmore and Cooks last year. I could absolutely see them moving back and accumulating more picks because I think that talent is there, especially at positions where they'll pick. A couple years they've been out, on the outside looking in for some of these guys. I think now they could really find those guys even early second round.
Yeah, we always hope for that.
I mean, if the Cowboys are going to take the running back, I'm moving out of the first round. If you tell me they're going to take that running back in the first round from Florida State, okay, listen, Trey Benson, trade at the end of the first round or trade out into the early second round, take him there and have your draft pick for later. That way you got your second round running back and you can still do what you got to do as far as filling out your depth of your roster because you still need young talent. So let's maybe transition away from the Cowboys, but look at the draft as a whole. And again, we'll do more draft stuff down the road. Give me one player in the draft who gives you red flags. You're like, I don't want him for the Cowboys. I'm not talking about like top 3 quarterbacks. Okay, it's pick your poison for Caleb Williams you do like, or Jaden Daniels, or Drake May is Mitch Trubisky, or Jaden Daniels is too unproven, or Caleb Williams you can't trust his mentality. I'm not talking about that. One prospect for the Cowboys, you're like, please not this guy. Do you have anybody yet who you're like, not him?
I don't have anybody yet. I'm trying to think what would go wrong if
I
they
would
went.
say this, and I think you might agree with me on this. J.C. Latham, the tackle from Alabama.
Oh, okay, yeah, forget it. Don't even
I,
add.
I
Don't even
don't.
go there with
I
linemen
can't
from
take an
Alabama.
Alabama offensive lineman.
Oh no, 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 no,
I just
yeah,
can't. Yeah,
no,
okay. We don't want them to pick Michael Penix. We don't pick a quarterback, duh. But that's
yeah,
how we don't feel like that's realistic.
no
But
Alabama linemen.
no, I don't want to take an Alabama lineman. I don't. I do not want to take it. So that's just me. I mean, I know my brother Spencer is probably rooting for them to take Cooper DeJean because he's a white cornerback and the first white cornerback since like Jason Sehorn. Who I think he's nasty too. He's 6'1.5", 200 pounds.
Yeah, he reminds me of myself. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you
Not
know,
now, not now
yeah,
at 64.
yeah, yeah. And Marvin Harrison Jr. reminds me of myself. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but yeah, okay. Okay, so listen, we've talked about Cowboys free agency moves. We're not really sure where they're at. They have work to do, but they have shown like last year they can still do work. They picked up Cooks later, they picked up Gilmore later. I still think they need to real sign Gilmore, but you understand where they're at. Dak, we've talked about Dak. We have also talked about the beginnings of the draft. Anything else you feel like we need to talk about before we get going here?
Well, I think one person really, I think this is going to be a fun, awesome draft. It's going to be awesome. But I'll tell you one thing, Caleb Williams, okay, um, listen, like all of us, what you do in your private life, that's your business. The work I do at my job, you come and do your job. Whatever you do outside the walls, that's your thing. If you could throw touchdown passes with fingertips, nails polished, all like that, people don't care. You want to wear skirts outside after you get dressed after the shower, you go wear a skirt and you just threw 3 touchdown passes and ran in for one. Nobody cares.
Who cares?
They will care if you suck and wear that
Uh,
stuff.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that. We know there's all sorts of whatever that goes on in
Yeah.
the locker room. it doesn't matter until you don't perform. Then
You
they
don't
will
perform.
nitpick
It's
you to death.
I
So,
said all the time the salesman is hitting his numbers. He's partying, carrying on. As soon as those numbers don't get hit, guess what? You're gone.
I've been a big Caleb Williams supporter. Who hasn't? He's the number one overall pick. And I tell you, he can hit. Orlovsky says Jaden Daniels is probably the more talented player, whatever. Caleb Williams to me can make all the throws. I just am curious about his psyche and mentality because what has shown me that is the crying on the field after the loss or whatever it is. You could say, oh, there's reasons, there's reasons. You're going to be a professional athlete, and the pressure is going to be immense in Chicago as the guy and the number one pick. And they've already wasted, I don't want to say wasted. They did. They wasted a pick on Justin
Yeah,
Fields and he
yeah,
didn't pan
they
out.
burned them. They that was to me it was stupid what they did, but
They traded him
anyways,
way too late. They should have traded
yeah.
him before free agency and the seats all filled up, so they had nowhere to go, but to get a basically dump pick for him. Um,
And what you're dealing with, you're gambling. This guy's gonna come in and produce for you because let me tell you something. Somebody, one of those guys, gonna hit him and drag him to the ground. Going, I like your polish. They're
right,
gonna rub it
they're
in.
going to come after him
Oh, they're
psychologically
gonna come
every
after
way.
him.
Yeah,
That hasn't changed in the NFL.
right.
That
They're
has not
going to do whatever
changed.
they can to get an advantage. I mean, John Randall, you can only imagine the mind games that guy played with people. Warren Sapp too. That's what a good
A
Randy
lot of
White,
them,
the greats do it. That's what it
the
is.
greats do it. Yes,
Right. You want to talk
and
now?
Brett Favre did it back too.
Right. Those guys,
And,
Philip
and,
Rivers going to
and,
trash talk you too, dog. You don't care.
and the guy from the Chargers all those years,
Right. Philip Rivers, they'll go after you.
they'll
Um,
go after you.
so I think there's a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams. And the more I'm getting closer to draft, I'm like, oh boy, it's going to be a lot. And if he can play up to it, he's going to be absolutely great. And if he
I
cannot, he will
I
burn
saw
out very fast.
what happened was what I saw him a few games there, and their defense let them down big time. That's what.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously the defensive coordinator. I mean, uh, he was no defensive coordinator and made his games look bad, but he can. He knows how to step up. He knows how to throw a football. Absolutely. I think he has all the tools,
Yeah.
but does he have the mind to deal with it?
Fair question. Fair question.
And
Listen,
Jeff George, just ask Jeff George. Nobody could
correct.
throw a football like him.
Correct. Listen, we got a minute and a half left. Anybody you want to shout out before we get going tonight?
Anybody who I have a shout out to get going? Yeah, I'm going to tell you something right now. How about the starting pitching for the Boston Red Sox? I looked at it the other day. I'm gonna call him up and say, listen, I'll be a spot starter because you might as well take me on the team because there's nothing there. Wiffle ball pitchers. They're wiffle ball pitchers.
Yeah, they are. It's an embarrassment what those guys are spending on starting pitching when you know the money they have. They got, Ray and Bello, and then the biggest guy they signed, Lucas Giolito, out for the year. So good luck for us. We last place in the AL East, so that'll be fun. Before we have less than a minute left. I'm gonna shout out my wife because she's the best, and that's all I got. That's
You
it
have one
for us.
too.
That's
That's right.
it.
You have one too.
Cowboys and Coffee. We're back in season 4. We're ready. D will talk
Yeah.
more draft soon. All right. I love you. Find
Love
us
you.
on Spotify, YouTube. Find us anywhere you have a podcast. All right. Talk to you guys later. Peace.